Hey, sunshine.
You must be Lloyd.
What gave it away?
The white pants, the trash stash. It leans Lloyd.
He says that'll do pig as well.
He says that in the freaking There's so many just random lines.
What's that shoe of you?
Why?
You want my foot in your ass?
I am the most complete fighter in the world. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
You can call it the art of fighting without fighting.
Stick around. Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Dodge this.
Good afternoon, morning, evening, or the middle of the night, depending on where in the world you are. But that doesn't really actually factor in because it's pre-recorded. You can listen to it whatever time. The intro's too long. It's Dodge This! Action Movies Unleashed changed the words after the colon because I found out that putting the word podcast in your podcast is unnecessary and can work against you, apparently, in some algorithms like type search stuff. Feel like I've probably lost the entire audience already with the most boring introduction in 15 episodes. It is episode 15.
It is not. It's episode 16. Sorry about that.
We're talking about some action movies, and it's a very special episode. It's also a sad episode. But for different reasons. There's no.
Are you sure you want to keep going? And not
sure,
like...
I think we should start. I should start the podcast again. Sadly, due to him being exceptionally busy at the moment, Matthew Heighton is unavailable. But lover of consistency that I am, we continue, and I have managed to rope back in friend of the show and previous absolute legendary Matt Heighton replacement, Emil Struijker.
I honestly thought what you were saying, lover of consistency. I'm like, that's me. I love a bit of consistency. Like, oh no, I'm the reason.
I just don't want to not put the podcast out for a month. So, sometimes you got to zig and zag and make it work, haven't you? Plus, there's so much shit coming out that I want to watch. We're gonna not be able to cover it all. So, thanks for stepping in.
I will say, at the moment, this is not a personal dig at your co-host, but I'm doing a whole festival. Like, it's 20 shows within 10 days. Like, I'm a busy man, but I care about this podcast.
Oh, here we go. Let me hit you with this bombshell. And I don't know. I'm a better check with Matthew. See whether I can say this on the podcast.
Bad news. It is top secret for now. What an exciting piece of intrigue.
He will be back in, I would say, 2 episodes' time, and then we can grill him on that. Unless the whole thing is top secret and I have to cut this entire bit out of the podcast. In Matthew's place, we've got Emil, which is very exciting for 2 reasons. 1, he's great and he's been on the podcast before and you love to see it. 2, we got to sit in the same room and watch this movie, which is a first for this podcast. The podcast that is separated by the English channel. Finally, both of us in Amsterdam went to a cinema to watch a Netflix movie. The Grey Man, which we will get to later. First up, have you seen anything else outside of that you would love to tell people about?
Because I am really, really busy.
I heard
just dedicated to this podcast. No, I checked my Pate app just to check what the last thing was. And the last thing before seeing The Grey Man was still Top Gun Maverick in the cinema. So I was like, oh boy, 6 weeks without seeing any other movie. So it's the same as last time even, I think.
Yeah. No, Top Gun was the last thing I saw in the cinema, but I did manage to squeeze a couple of things in. For those interested, it's currently the Boom Chicago Comedy Festival, where both Emil and I operate. That sounds like we're spies or drug dealers.
Well, I do operate a little bit.
B.
I do operate a little bit.
That's true. You're the tech op. So he's operating the tech in the show, and I am operating my
so many buttons
mouth to make stupid jokes, I suppose. So for the past week and a half, there's been all manner of exciting shows and people visiting from overseas. There's been a lot going on, so we've been spending a lot of time in our workplace, so to speak.
Yeah,
however,
some very last minute show learning, fun stuff.
When I wasn't at my workplace in the last couple of weeks, I did manage to squeeze in a couple of little views. Ordinarily, this part of the show or historically, I should say, has been what things have you seen that aren't action oriented?
Right.
Latterly, though, it has sort of become the repository for movies that I didn't want to do a whole podcast about, but do still want to mention that I've seen and whether or not you should watch them.
Right. So this is the runner-up section.
It sort of is,
This is Misfit Island.
I haven't watched any like comedy movies or light TV shows or anything recently. I've started watching The Terminal List, which is that Chris Pratt thing on Amazon Prime, which is quite a heavy TV show about Navy SEALs and murders. I'm only 2 episodes in. Quite interesting, I'd say. The reviews haven't been overwhelmingly great, but I'm going to stick with it a little bit longer and see how it pans out. He's good at being a hard nut, I think, and he's finally doing it without the kind of eyebrow raise and cheeky knowing wink, which I think is always interesting when people do that. Like John Krasinski in the Jack Ryan thing. You know, you're used to these people being like comedy people, and now they're like, well, it turns out pretty much anyone can get ripped. So let's see how good at acting you are.
Yeah, now all the personal coaches now have the 6-week program to rip anybody.
That's it. Yeah, were
to a
you
shredded
on
piece
an
of God.
American sitcom, but in 2 months' time you're going to need to play a soldier? Come see your dad. We'll get you sorted out.
No. We know how to do it now. It's fine.
So that was all right. Also, another Netflix movie that's been on my list for a while that I decided to have a peruse. Yaksha, Ruthless Operations, a South Korean movie, which features your boy Park Hae-soo from Squid Game, who played, can't remember the character name, but like the boring accountant guy in Squid Game.
Oh, okay.
Who was a little bit nefarious. He plays a sort of boring accountant in this, actually. It was not an enormous stretch, but the movie around him is a sort of, I would say, sort of a high-tech action thriller, which has its moments. Definitely not a bad movie by any stretch, but it tickles you a little bit, but doesn't quite deliver. I didn't want to follow through on the rest of that analogy, but
right, sure.
It had a few promising moments where you were like, if you just, that was a good scuffle. I wish it had been a full action fight, an action fight.
So just clip this, and then when you ask me about the Gray Man later on, just copy paste that in for me.
Okay, I'll just Control V this in. The one other thing that you didn't get a chance to watch, I suppose, was The Princess.
but I really want to watch that. I was very excited by that trailer.
Yeah,
it looked like
that's right, because we watched that trailer together on the last time you were here.
Yes.
So this is the American movie from Vietnamese director Le Van Keet, about a princess trapped in a castle who has to fight her way out in a sort of very actiony movie. The clash of genres, I guess. Historical epic meets modern action movie.
Yeah, and also, how is this not already a video game?
Right. Great point.
I mean, and when I mean branded to the movie, I'm sure there's a video game where you have to fight your way up a tower. I can vaguely see it in front of me, so I think I've seen it. So, like, the format is already there.
Yeah.
But
for sure. It does. I mean, the movie does play like a video game in that regard, I suppose. It's like a reverse Game of Death. Like, she starts at the top and has to get to the bottom.
Yeah, which is great.
I didn't dislike it. I liked it. I did like this movie. It was throughout the whole thing, I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, why does this movie exist? Like, who is it for? It feels like the pitch was, how can we get teenage girls into Asian action cinema? Except, why would anyone ever ask that question?
Money. Yeah, I guarantee you, they probably started looking at the Asian market going, you know what, there's a ton of money there.
Yeah, maybe.
Dwayne Johnson has done it with Inferno. It's like, I'm going to collaborate, and then we have 2 markets to conquer.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and I think, like, we'll touch upon that a bit later with The Gray Man, because I think they very much, like, lean into that. But with this, it just seems such an odd, like, the casting of a Joey King, who is known only to teenage girls at this point, I would say, right? And then putting her in an action film that is very much aimed at teenage boys. Maybe it's the teenage date movie. Maybe that's the market.
That's a good point.
When you go on it's a Netflix and chill date.
Yeah, her friends have grown up, obviously. I mean, same thing sort of happened with, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah, fans grow up and they get interested in more adult things as they grow older. And so
that is a fair point. Yeah. And there is a lot to enjoy in it. And the fact that it exists, I think, is good. The fact that there's a movie where a princess kicks the shit out of loads of people, and there's some quite sort of novel martial arts and grisly deaths.
I mean, that is reason enough for me. Yeah.
He's in.
Like if you ask why does this movie exist, it's like, well, like in my mind, it's like, yeah, I just want to see kick-ass girl in a hopefully in like a very fancy dress because she has to get married but doesn't want to, just kill everybody. As long as it's in a great creative way, I'm good with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of very on the nose feminism, but yeah, it scratches
most movies tend to be very on the nose, and that's fine. I because gun to my head between like really really subtle messaging or on the nose. Like, give me the on the nose, because then we can interpret everything else around that as well. But if you're going to be subtle about it, or like, I'll leave it up to your imagination what this movie is about, I'm like, well, that's
you want it spelled out like RRR.
If I have to choose, I'd rather have a combination of the both.
Fair. That seems fair. All right, we haven't even got into the trailers yet. It feels like it's about time to do that. I feel like I've dominated that section by just being like, I've watched some things.
You've watched some things. I've rewatched some things. I've rewatched bits and pieces of War to make myself happy. But honestly, to calm myself down after a busy festival day.
Yeah,
I've been watching a lot of Bob Ross.
Oh, okay, that's nice. He does paintings.
He does paintings. It's, as a lot of people were saying, he's sort of the original ASMR before ASMR was a thing. And he has...
And not anywhere near as creepy.
Well, his tone can be creepy, but it's more... There is a surprising amount of depth. One thing that he does, for instance, which can be very revealing, perhaps, is he's got a lot of patterns in his speech. And one of them, when he like paints a little bush, and like, you can put that anywhere. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Like that little beat and the second doesn't matter. It's like, what is behind that?
He could be a serial killer. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like life doesn't matter. Is this painting? What? And he'll drop in little life advice gems just here and there.
He
started off an episode feeding a squirrel in his hand. Like, he's a bit of a Disney princess overall.
Oh, we need
but
those
he's
people.
So like, hey, you paint, you can do it. I'm showing you how easy it can be. You don't need to spend 18 hours. We're doing this for fun. I'm doing this to create a world I want to live in. It's like, it's all upbeat and empowering, and he's a sweetheart. So it's great. But that's need a removing it. But that's what I've been watching.
No, but I feel like I need to watch that. That's what this section should be about, instead of the runners-up podium for the podcast.
Right.
But that's a great recommend. I've heard loads of great things about him. Never got around to it.
Yeah, I really want to do something with it in an improv way, or do like a presentation on it or something. Anyway,
let's go to the trailer park.
Ooh, is this a trailer park?
Thank you.
I'm just giving you a pitch for a slow.
I like you pitching new jingles and bits. We're going to have to refresh them at some point. I'm open to ideas. Let's bash through these.
Do it.
First of all, we talked about the new Predator movie in previous episodes, which is called Prey. And almost by complete chance, another movie about an unidentified monster killing people has come out. And it's called The Prey, Legend of Carnoctus. And it looks quite bad. Quite bad. Let's be honest. It looks like a very cheap monster movie. I didn't really want to slate it. It would just happen to be called The Prey right at the same time as Predator, and it felt like there's got to be some marketing thought into that, surely.
I didn't even think of that, because in my mind, you're probably right. Like, it happens all the time, because like a simple script or something, they can think they can lift off. It didn't even occur to me, because that seems like such a bad business plan.
True.
I mean, it's not, because it happens all the time outside of movies. So it must work. They must make their money back. But yeah, it didn't look fun at all.
No.
Like, not even in this is a terrible CGI or terrible puppetry, I think in this case, or a costume.
Yeah,
work.
There was a lot of red flags.
But like, the acting wasn't fun.
Danny Trejo's never like a thing that like a sign of this will be good.
Well, yeah, but a sign of it could be fun.
True. But there didn't seem to be any of that, apart from him saying something at the end.
Assalamu alaikum, motherfucker. Like, what?
I know. I was like, Okay, this is tonally all
happening?
over the place, this movie. Anyway, there's a monster hunting some soldiers in a cave in Afghanistan. Oddly, actually, I looked at it on IMDb, and there is a poster for it that makes it look like it is tonally meant to be quite silly. Like the tagline is, of all the caves in all the world, we chose the only one with a effing Afghani Sasquatch.
What?
That, I feel like that is a very different sell to the trailer, which is like we're trying to do a serious horror film.
Yeah, that's very much the tone of the trailer, and it feels miserably at that.
Just the word Sasquatch, I think, makes it sound like a fun movie. Anyway, I can't spend any more time on it.
No.
More excited about this. It seems like August is going to be an exciting month for Netflix exclusives. TM, just copyrighted that. I don't know if that's possible. Live. There's a new movie from the director of The Villainess, which was, I don't know if you saw that South Korean movie, a quite mad action movie with some incredible like directorial flourishes, like a sort of the movie opens with this like 10-minute first person action scene, which is sort of nuts and incredible. It's called Carter. Anyway, this new movie, and it looks, similarly like it will be nuts / exciting.
I wrote down, so for the Prey, I just wrote down, why did it not look fun? because like you have a giant silly monster, you're hunting him in a cave. Like this should be a fun movie, and you feel. With Carter, I looked at the first thing I wrote, that looked fucking dope.
Nice.
Like, and then like it kind of felt like a perfect trailer. Like you have no real idea about the plot,
right?
There's a hint of the premise, and just so many good and interesting shots for an action movie, which is the thing that kind of draws you
that
in.
You
Certainly,
want, right? Yeah.
If you've seen a bunch of them already, then you're kind of always looking for something like, oh, what's your little twist on this? And oh my God, there were so many things in here where I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't tell you what the plot is, apart from the CIA is after you. You've got a bomb in your head. I'm listening. And then like, I'm doing a fight. I'm jumping off a thing. There's cars. Something flips over. And I'm like, yep, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm in.
But that's Speed. Like you basically just pitched Speed.
Right. There's a
yeah, I'm on board.
Pop quiz, hot shot. You got a bomb in your head.
Like, we'll figure out why. That's what the trailer is for. You don't need to explain to me exactly what's happening. You need to. There's oversaturation as well. I have this with video games all the time when they show another trailer for a game that's coming out in a year. I'm like, I already want to play this game. Why do you like? You're making me want to play it less and less.
Right.
I just
don't show me too much. Yeah. And I think the hook of this, if you will, is that this director is pretty good at making some mad shit happen on screen. Their name is Byung-Gil Jung, and the other movie that he made is called Confessions of Murder, which I haven't seen, but is available on Hi-R, the streaming service that I pay for every month and do not use enough. But also is supposed to, have that was the one that came before The Villainous and, teed up his signature OTT super visceral style. So I'm excited for Carter. This is good. I like it when Netflix has commissioned international movies and they're available day and date for us. Speaking of, this one is sort of a left turn, but it's a trailer that popped up for a movie that is, I believe, just screening at like a film festival at some point. It's a Canadian movie called Polaris, about a little girl who's friends with a polar bear who then has to escape from some baddies.
Again, I literally wrote down "see above" in my notes,
right?
Because like it looked great, first of all, and it kind of had the same thing of, not show me too much plot, and not show me why like the heels, the bad guys, are doing what they're doing. So
right,
you want to find that out. But some very interesting shots. There's the first half of the trailer is sort of very different from the second half. Like when it takes a real turn, it really, we're like, whoa, yeah, that's exciting.
So this is
and if it can do that, wow.
This is the second feature from someone called Kirsten Carthew, who I'm gonna say is Canadian based on both of her movies being set in Canada. That seems fair enough. Her first one was called The Sun at Midnight, and also, oddly, features a young girl in the wilderness. So this feels like, perhaps a sort of, well, I've got a little bit more money, I could do a bit more exciting things, but these are some topics that I like to cover.
Yeah, it was only the star CGI that I had a real issue with.
Oh, I didn't even notice that actually. What I thought while I was watching it, because I just watched all these trailers again to put them fresh in my mind, was that's how you make a low budget movie look interesting and intriguing. The Prey is how you make a low budget movie look low budget. And why would I want to watch this?
Yeah.
This Polaris seems very interesting. It's like a young girl versus the Arctic type wilderness and questionable baddies.
There seems to be but there seems to be some tribal thing going on as well with the bad guy, but it's not explained at all. So I'm not even sure if the bad guy that I think is the bad guy is the bad guy or Batwoman.
No idea. It had like a sort of almost like a Mad Maxy vibe there.
Yeah, sorry, I wrote that down too. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, it's like a mini Mad Max I wrote because of the lower budget. Matt Maxine looked great, very interesting.
Yeah,
I fear, or not fear. I feel there's more to that little girl than we even saw in the trailer.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that for a wider release. We got one more to squeeze in before we get onto the main event, and it's the second Netflix exclusive. I didn't like it as much the second time. I felt good the first time when I kind of came upon it, and this time.
Are you second guessing your trademark?
Yeah, it just felt a bit forced that time. Anyway, it's another straight to Netflix movie that's coming out in August, I believe. It's called Day Shift, and it's a Jamie Foxx, Dave Franco, and Snoop Dogg hunting vampires. Now, this might make you think back to one of the first big budget Netflix exclusives, Bright, with Will Smith. Did you ever watch that movie?
I never did end up watching that.
I thought it was okay, actually, but it caught a lot of flack at the time. Now, this is directed, though, by a guy called J.J. Perry, who is an absolute legend in the stunts community. He's been a stunt coordinator for years and years on shitloads of really great movies. And this is his first directorial feature. So this is quite exciting. It's a little bit like when Chad Stahelski did John Wick and then kind of opened that door to like, oh, yeah, so this dude used to do stunts. And you can fucking tell because this shit looks very cool.
On point.
So we're hoping with this that it's going to very much deliver in the action department. The trailer suggests could be good. Could be good.
I mean, the trailer is stacked with action to the point where I was like, is there any left for the movie? Because this seems to be all of it.
There is that danger. Yeah, hoping there's a few surprises in the bag.
Yeah, I kind of have faith in it because even the trailer they said from the people who taught John Wick how to kick ass,
which is
be paraphrasing,
which is like such a good sales pitch without actually sort of saying anything of subs. It's not like from the director, not the producer.
It's like, it's like stunt coordinator
from J.J. Perry, who is friends with Chad Stahelski. Like, I think Chad was like an executive producer on this or something. Like,
but it's the best way to get people like, you like John Wick, right?
Yes.
This is the same premise as far as there's a former stunt dude directing this.
Right.
The action, if you like action, it's going to be.
It may as well say like on one of those like music discovery services for fans of. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's exactly that. But it was full of it very much. I wrote down Stoner Movie of the Year probably because I hope there's more Snoop Dogg in it for one.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes me go, Snoop Dogg being in a movie that does not fill me with hope. Like, I hope he's good in this, and I hope he's in it a little bit, but like, it's not. You're not leading with, oh, Snoop Dogg's in this movie. Oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna check that out.
No, but Jamie Foxx is the lead. He's a great actor.
Yeah,
fantastic actor.
Also, got to shout out Scott Adkins is in this movie. We don't know for how long. I scoured this trailer. I was like, oh, I've heard Adkins is in this. Great. He's in the trailer for like 1 second. He's definitely there.
Okay.
We don't know how long he lasts in the movie, but the fact that he's there and he stood next to Jamie Foxx is good, and we can only hope he gets to do a spin kick or at least kick the shit out of some vampires before invariably being killed.
Yeah, I mean, both Carter Polaris and like excited me. This is probably the one I'm looking forward to the most, but it's also the one that there were a couple of moments within the trailer where I kind of like took a step back and like, no, don't lean into that too much. And it's the peeing in the pants. It's like, so we got to make you could do better,
right? Of all these trailers, I would say, and I think this is both good and bad. It's the most Netflix-looking movie.
Yes.
What does
Maybe
that
that's
mean?
also why I
It's
wrote
very
down stoner
difficult
movie.
yeah.
Just put it on, it's fine.
It's sort of a thing, isn't it? To like be like, oh, it's such a Netflix movie. And I imagine we're going to talk about this more when we get into the main event. But there's something about it that's like, I guess it's like designed by committee, right? You know, it's like, what are the things that people click on? Was this a movie that was going to be made anyway? Netflix bought it, or did Netflix go, this movie looks fun and everything, but you know what people who love Netflix love? Rappers from the 1990s in pivotal roles.
See, I don't know if it's going to be a pivotal role.
No, I don't think it's going to be.
I hope. And maybe that's.
I hope it's a
hoping
small
against hope.
supporting role, and it's like, oh, fair play, Snoop. Good job.
But if you let Snoop be Snoop. Like,
who else is going to be?
He's wearing a cowboy hat.
He's the Snoop D-O-double-G.
So I'm already on board because I own a cowboy hat. But like, yes, let him be a stoner cowboy who shoots a ton. Like, yeah, brings out the big guns.
He has got a big
at
gun
one point.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I will watch this almost certainly. What's annoying is that even if it's like Rotten Tomatoes 17%, I'll probably be like, I mean, I'm still gonna have a look at it.
But that's at least
so
always
annoying.
you're like, all right, comedy's not gonna be great or whatever, but the action is.
I do want to see
that's
the
why
action.
I'm watching it.
I think I'm excited that JJ Perry
Again,
is directing
stoner
it.
movie is like you're not too bothered with what's happening, but what is on screen is exciting to watch.
All right, I think it's time for our feature presentation.
And now, our feature presentation.
Dodge this.
Okay, it's recording. We'll just walk in.
He's gonna walk in.
This is a very exciting and arguably pointless interjection. Just to say that this is the first time so far on the podcast that I have been in the same room as the other person on the podcast watching the movie. Sadly, it's not Matthew Hyton. That's no disrespect to Emil, who is with me right now. We're walking into the screen. There's someone else in the screen. People, we should shut up now. Simon Lucas is also here. He's a big movie fan, and he's also a comedian from Chicago. There's quite a lot of people in the screen. I'm turning the recorder off now. See you after. I think we can all agree it was well intentioned, but largely pointless. And also, if you don't have a windshield, don't whisper into the microphone. That's mainly just breath. That is just breath.
Yeah, that's mainly just breath. Also, I think we were all taken aback by the clientele within the room as we walked in.
True.
And more than anything else, that was a real like, whoa, okay, we better shut up.
Yeah, I expected there to be nobody in the cinema because it was 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday on a very
sunny
hot day.
day.
Yeah. And then secondly, everyone else in the cinema was like an OAP or, like in their 50s
OAP?
and 60s, an old age pensioner.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah, and no slight on OAPs. Clearly, these ones have got good taste in movies. Love a bit of action on a Thursday afternoon.
Good taste in hunky men.
It's true. The four hunky men that strode into that and sat on a couch-style love seat next to each other.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, very nice. So the movie that we were
plenty
seeing,
of room on those.
Yeah, it was fine actually. I did miss the armrest on the other side, but we don't need to get into the logistics of the couch. It was very pleasant. Pleasant cinema. We went to see The Grey Man, which by the time you hear this will be coming out very soon on Netflix. But it's which I think is maybe a new thing going forward, or maybe a contractual thing, has a 1 week cinema release window. Now, if this was The Irishman, you would think, oh, well, it's probably so it can be a contender for awards. But I don't think that's the case with The Grey Man. I don't know why it gets a 1 week cinema release. I'm glad it does because it meant we get to enjoy it on a big screen, which I think probably made it feel more enjoyable than it would do if you watched it in your house. Don't know what your house looks like. If you've got a 100-inch screen and surround sound, maybe it'll be the same.
Fair enough.
I don't have that, sadly, so I liked it in the cinema. Also, no distractions. Didn't look at my phone, put it away.
Lovely.
I should talk about what the film's about. It's directed by the Russo brothers, Anthony and Joe Russo, who directed a lot of Marvel stuff. The Captain Avenger movies, the actual Avengers movie, the last two, Endgame and Fist of Justice. Is that what it's called? Avengers Fist of Justice? Infinity Gauntlet. Infinity War. Got it. Got there eventually.
Okay. Wow. My God. I thought you were talking about something.
No,
completely
Avengers Fist of Justice. I think we can agree that's what it was called.
The same movie.
So we got those guys. They're big hitters in the directorial sphere.
Yeah, and the Community. They directed a ton of Community
That's
episodes.
interesting. I didn't know that, actually.
So they have a big fan following for sure.
We've got Ryan Gosling back, and we've got Captain America himself, Chris Evans, playing the bad guy. We've also got support from Ana de Armas, who is shooting up the old Hollywood ranks. I think everybody's a big fan of hers. I sort of forgot I'd seen her in a lot of stuff. Noticed her in the last Bond movie, where she had quite a short appearance, but very noteworthy.
Such a best thing about that movie.
Yeah, everyone loved it. We've also got Billy Bob Thornton.
And I like that
there.
movie. Sorry, that sounded weird.
No, I did too.
It's not like I dislike the Bob. I was just her bit. I fucking love. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
Yeah. I think everyone can agree that was a solid appearance. We've got Jessica Henwick, who was in the Matrix movie that we don't talk about. We've also got an appearance from Indian superstar Dhanush, which I guess we can talk about later. It's a pretty stacked cast.
Reggie Jean Page. You need Jean Page? Reggie Jean Page? Oh my God. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I just realized. Have I heard it out loud? I must have heard it out loud. He's from Bridgerton. He's huge.
Right. Yeah, see, I forgot.
I burn for you. Or something.
I think I've only watched like 2 episodes of Bridgerton.
I burn for you. I burn. So something like.
But he's English, right? He's English in Bridgerton.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So it's I burn for you.
Thank you. I burn for you. It's not as sexy, is it? I burn for you. I don't know why he says it.
No,
like that.
he says. I think he says that, and I think it's very low, and it's probably a girl who's married or something like. I burn for you.
He is very sexy and smouldering in Bridgerton. Not sexy or smouldering in this, actually. Quite just plays a sort of like a wanker boss.
Yappy puppy.
So to summarize, Ryan Gosling is a naughty boy who's recruited out of prison to work for the CIA under Billy Bob Thornton, gets trained up to be a super assassin. And as we join the movie, he's been an assassin for a good old few years, like 15, 18 years. And there's some shit's kicked off where all is not as it seems. There's a new boss, and maybe he's in danger. He's got a MacGuffin, sort of not a MacGuffin because you do see what it is, but he's got a USB stick that the baddies want to get the USB. He's got it. The chase is on.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I'd peg it. And I will say that the chase is on from minute 2 of the movie and really doesn't stop till hour 2 is up. So first of all, it is an action movie that is almost wall-to-wall action. It goes from set piece to set piece to set piece. And in that regard, I was very pleased. It's not like an action thriller where you're like, oh, there's a bit of espionage and we got like a 40-minute bit where no one gets shot or chased. It's just they are going. It takes itself moderately seriously, I would say. It's not as arch in tone as a lot of latter-day Marvel stuff, but Chris Evans does have a comedy moustache and sort of is quite a cartoonish villain. Gosling, fairly straight, quite dry and sardonic occasionally. But yeah, I think that's a good place for us to start. That's the sort of the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Now, going into this, I'd seen the trailer. I knew that the Russos could do action, and I was excited to see them apply that to a modern day, but not superhero context. I think they did pretty well, all things considered.
That's a huge little asterisk to everything you just said before this, considering. Yeah. But considering what? Because I think overall, for first impression, certainly after, you liked it more than I did. So, but now there's the little caveat, all things considering. What is there to consider for you? Well, I think I'm not aware of their pre-Marvel pedigree so much. So they cropped up on my radar, I think, at The Winter Soldier, right? They directed that. And that had
that was, I think, the first Marvel movie where there was a lot of Marvel action, but there was also some quite good grounded fight scenes that were like well choreographed, visible, like well shot and put together. And I was like, oh, this feels like it's basically like a spy action movie, right? But there's some superpowers, and probably I forget what happened to the end, but I imagine it had a, Marvel, everything explodes last 20 minutes. So I was interested that like, could they apply that to stuff without the Marvel ending, yada, yada, yada. And I think by and large, they do. I think if I had complaints about the action, which I don't want to air too many grievances right up top, but there are some very spectacular action scenes that are well imagined and well executed for the most part, but they're sort of such big scenes. They escalate, and then there comes a point where they get to a point that you can't really practically do these things. And then there's a sort of switch, and you're just like, oh, this has gone a little bit too CGI now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of moments where I was like, this is a very imaginative action scene. I'm really enjoying it. And then it just was like, and you just pushed it too far. You just went too far. You just didn't need that person obviously on wires jumping off the thing. You didn't need the thing going into the building, or like, there's, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but there's like an action scene in a plane, which is pretty cool. And there's an action scene with a tram, which is pretty cool. And they're both pretty cool to a point. And then they get a little bit over CG for my liking in what is otherwise sort of attempting to be a quote unquote grounded action movie. There's no one in this movie has superpowers outside of the realm of being unrealistically talented assassins, etc.
I mean, is that your bar for a regular action movie, that they just don't have superpowers? Because you say grounded, and like the first fight takes place in a fireworks pit. So, which I guess, that could happen realistically, I suppose. But it's also a very stylized fight, which I haven't seen the trailer. I went into there. I honestly, when Ryan Gosling came on screen, I was like, oh shit, Ryan Gosling's in this.
Oh, you didn't even know that?
No.
That's exciting.
You invited me for this, and I was like, great, man. I'm like, and I'll book the tickets. The poster is very dark and small on the plzzz, so I didn't recognize him.
In fairness, a lot of the movie is very dark. I will also say that there's a lot of very dark scenes, and there's a lot of probably CGI smoke as well.
Yeah, I felt a lot of the combat was just too much shaking. I want to, like, one of the things that with Captain America Winter Soldier is you can follow the fight, and I've become more and more aware of this, or demanding of this, I guess, in movies, that I want to see the fight, because the fight is the story. You don't just have a fight for the fight.
Welcome to the podcast, Emil.
But I don't know why I've never look, because as a massive wrestling fan, like, that's all wrestling is. It's fighting storytelling.
Yeah, they never like cut away on the hits in wrestling.
No,
there's never
on TV they do, but in live, which is very annoying as well. There, a lot of fans complain about that.
Yeah,
and there's there can be some shaky camera footage for sure, unnecessarily.
Oh, okay.
But everybody's annoyed by that. But it's sort of it's been around for 40 years, so that's just how it's done, right. I guess.
But there's also people in real life watching it, right? So it still has to look good.
Exactly. And in life, there is no even commentating, so you're solely dependent on two people telling. And I only really got that out of the final fight in the movie, where I was like, oh, they take a bit more of a step back. I kind of, with every other fight, it just felt like, just 2 steps back, please. 2 steps back.
Yeah. I will.
So I can recognize people and see because at certain points, I really felt this is a Transformers movie. So which I had the same feeling with, well, there's a bunch of metal on my screen now. And then later, thankfully, sort of found out, well, I'm not the only one. Tons of people find that. And then tons of people are fine with that. So this might be a very personal, I want to see the storytelling because it's, it's one against 1,000 other people, essentially. Like, that's an interesting story to tell. And like with RRR, they had the introduction of Rom is that 1,000-fold, not realistic at all, but they do such a good job of telling the story with cinematography of 1 against 80,000 and making you somehow feel like, one, that it could be done.
Yeah.
and 2, that it did happen.
Right. Well, I think that's interesting is that, and you sort of saying about how you like things to be more on the nose, and like that storytelling is quite linear in RRR, albeit the second half of the movie does sort of fill in the backstory. But with this, it starts and it's like, this guy's the hero. We'll let you know why throughout the movie, but just root for him. He's going to be in trouble and you don't want him to die. And so you only you're more invested as you find out more details, you know, about his boss has a daughter and there's some like, I don't think it makes a huge difference to the plot, but there's like, she's in jeopardy. And so suddenly, you know, he has a bit more humanity to him and he's not just like this cold-blooded assassin. And that then you're a bit more invested in like his motives and why all this stuff is happening. I think like, I agree with you. I would love to see more in the fights, and like the fireworks and shit is, you know, arguably unnecessary, but it is an action movie, and they do set out their stall in those first 5 minutes where it's like he's meant to kill someone and he sort of has doubts, and then oh shit, all hell breaks loose, and it's in Thailand and there's fireworks and they're like surrounded by fireworks having a fight, which is like clearly a very cool directorial decision to be like, you know what would look cool? And
I love those decisions. If you, but you kind of have to make it work somehow. And I think for me anyway, it's either don't explain it at all and just let it happen, or you really need to justify it, which like RRR is amazing at, of justifying almost every silly thing that happens on screen or ridiculous thing that happens on screen. But it's, I mean, you just said like, it doesn't really affect the movie, like the whole daughter storyline, which I'm fine with a ton of stuff happening as long as obviously they're well executed. And to me, this felt, well, you haven't really executed your first storyline about why is this 6, he's called, because he's Sierra 6, this fucking elite group. That's why it's called Gray Man. They don't exist.
They exist in the gray.
In the gray, where, you know, Regine Jean Page exists in fire because he burns for you.
I'm sure there's going to be a Grey Man Bridgerton mashup, right? By the time this podcast comes out, someone's already made that. It would, in fact, it would probably be Matt Heighton if he wasn't quite so busy right now.
Quite so busy, yeah. Yeah, so the that's all fine, but then the little girl saying the little girl storyline just feels sort of, well, we don't need that. He's being hunted. He's already in danger. Why do we need this whole other girl?
I guess it's to give him more humanity, right? Than for him just to be like a robotic assassin. You're like, well, okay, I hope he doesn't die. He seems like an all right guy, but now it's like, well, for the little girl.
But what's set right in that first scene in prison where he gets recruited, there's already a hint at his trauma. Because Billy Bob Thornton, who recruits him, is like, I don't know if he says between you and me, but he definitely says, I would have shot him too.
That's right, yes.
I would have done the exact same thing. Setting up like, you're not a bad guy. Yeah. You got into a bad situation and you're unfairly punished for it. And this is going to be your way out.
Yeah.
Or at least a way out of prison. And it comes back at the end of the movie, but it felt sort of unjustified, where it's like, well, where was this in the past hour?
That's true.
45 minutes.
Yeah. I wonder if there were other like flashbacks that didn't make the final edit that were a bit like,
I think so.
Yeah, we do need this bit.
Because Dad, Shea Wiggum, is not a small time actor.
That's right. Yeah.
He's a character actor, I think is what we were describing as. When you see his face, I think people who watch more than the average, I guess, movies will go, oh, that guy.
Right. And you barely
like
see him.
Fast and Furious.
I remember kind of going, oh, is that's that guy? I suppose that's what you do when you see a character actor. You go, oh, that's that guy from that thing.
Hey, fun. Yeah.
But you barely see him in the movie. Yeah. He's just sort of like, you know, a presence and a motivation, I suppose.
Yeah. But maybe that's what kicked me down, because it was like, well, you definitely have more scenes with his family storyline, which is interesting, because then you have the inward battle and the outward battle.
There you go.
And you have your subtleties and your not so subtleties. Like it's all right there. You don't need another storyline in there to make that all happen.
And that bit that pops up at the end is quite like, oh, okay. Like it is, I don't want to say jarring, but it is like, it kind of gives it like a superficial emotional heft that it kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, well, okay, I suppose like maybe you can't overdo that, but maybe we could have had a couple more hints at like how he became this person.
You could have, I mean, just riffing now, like the idea that came up just in my head right now.
Boy.
But then the movie becomes about trauma, right? Dealing with trauma, how you deal with that. And there's also a bit about self-discovery, I guess, in that sense of like, oh, your character has been defined by this trauma for so long, but now you have to figure out who you are without it, which is hard. Like, and some people can't do it, and you definitely can't do it alone. Like you have to have people around you. So you have that. And being chased down with like doing something that you are really good at, but that you don't want to do, you know, just because you're talented at something doesn't mean that is your life's destiny.
The reluctant assassin.
Yeah. And then maybe at the end he keeps being an assassin, but now because he wants to. And he wasn't being forced.
Right. It turns out I actually bloody love killing people.
So like I feel there's so much meat on the bone there.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a bit of a Pixar mind looking at it. It's like, I want some emotion in this, please.
No, I think you can. I think you're right. And
but because they put that in the end, that's what made me think.
Right. Yeah. You're like, either, you know, give me a bit more or take it out entirely and have it just be like a one-man army. It's an action movie. I don't want any emotion. I just want to see the gods kicking the shit out of loads of faceless baddies throughout the movie. And I want to see him fight Chris Evans at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I think they absolutely could have given, I think, all of the characters a little bit more like meat on the bone, right? There's sort of interesting characters that pop up in very small roles. We talked about Danush earlier. There's also another character played by Alfred Woodard, who is an interesting character that sort of hits those interesting beats, but just like top level beats. You're like, what's the relationship here? Okay, it's just sort of like, it's a given. They go way back. Don't worry about it. And so I think, those sketches could have been colored in a little bit more.
But this is exactly what to me made it feel, as I think it was the first or second thing I said to you, like this, my one sentence review, it feels like a bunch of cutscenes from a video game all put behind each other. Because like in a Metal Gear Solid game, there's conversations in between fighting, during fighting with somebody in your ear or something, or even with like Call of Duty, there's people always talking to you. So there's a lot of information that's given about it. So with Danush's character as well, like he comes out of nowhere and then also just leaves out of nowhere.
Yes.
It's both are kind of jarring. It's like, well, there was no introduction for him, so I don't fear him. Like we have no clue who this person is.
They kind of hint at him, don't they, when there's like one of those sort of assassin APBs gets put out, like the thing in John Wick where everyone's phone buzzes and then they're all like, there's a bit where they kind of go alert all the teams and then you just see his hands like twiddling some, what I assume are like prayer beads or some sort of Indian accoutrement. And then you don't see him again till he does. It's a pretty cool entrance though, to be fair. Like he kind of appears just kicks everyone's ass and then fucks off.
Yeah, but it's like there's so much more there for that type of character.
Yes.
And it feels, so that made it feel like, we just didn't see the, in-game playing. We just saw the cutscene of it.
Right, yeah.
As he appears and goes away.
Maybe some stuff got left on the floor.
Because they all kind of felt like little mini bosses. And then, going up to they end up in a boss room, which is always a circular room. In this case, it's in the middle of a maze.
That's true. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Now that you've mentioned your cutscene bit, this seems like the perfect time for, I made the effort to do it. I'm definitely playing it in the goddamn podcast. I've done an outside broadcast, an OB. And so I paid to rent the satellite van to get the live feed to beam it back here after the movie. I also turned on the recorder to get Emil's thoughts. Plus, we were also with two other people, Simon Lucas and RJ Williams, two other improvisers. And I wanted to hear everyone's thoughts as the credits were rolling. Let's hope it sounds better than the earlier one. We still had to talk into the wind-shielded microphone quite close. Okay, I think we can talk over this music. They're going to turn the music up. It's the end of the movie. We're still in the cinema where the acoustics are great, but there is music. It could be a copyright problem. I'm just going to get everyone's quick opinion, then we're going to go back to the studio where me and Emil are going to get into this. Simon Lucas from Boom Chicago, thoughts?
Unbelievably stupid. But I think if it hadn't been Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans and a really good cast and very entertaining, I think it might have been shit. But it wasn't quite shit. But it was dumb. But it was fun. But it was dumb.
Can I have a star rating out of 5?
A 3.
3. I thought he was going to go lower, actually. That was...
It was a... I wouldn't have seen it if it wasn't a social outing.
Okay, that feels like there's a lot wrapped up in that. And let's leave it there. It's mystical. Emil, I'm going to talk to you in the studio right after this clip finishes, but any immediate thoughts?
A bunch of cutscenes cut together, which are probably already set before this, so I'm sorry for repeating myself.
I quite enjoyed it, but I do have quite a lot of thoughts, which we'll get into. Simon has something else to add.
I'm going to downgrade it to a 2, actually.
He's taking a whole star off.
I got to.
I thought it was going to be a 2.5. That is aggressive. All right, back to Simon in the future. Bye. quite the a smorgasbord of reviews there. I am surprised that I think I enjoyed this the most out of everyone. And I'm a little bit surprised that you enjoyed it less than me, because I think, in some ways you are quite forgiving of, like, I don't want to say wacky over the top action, but like the Fast and the Furious movies, we keep harking back to that. I know you're more than the Fast and the Furious, Emil, but it's such a touch point.
It's the most clear example of what everybody certainly perceives. Even if you haven't seen it, you kind of know what Fast and Furious is about. So,
wrestling, Fast and Furious. This guy is clearly an idiot with no taste. That's what we take away. Right?
Which, fair enough.
And so I thought this one is going to be a layup. He's going to love this movie. It's clearly designed by an algorithm, It's just great.
Yes. However, if we can keep it on wrestling for a bit, thank you so much.
God damn it, I let him out of the box.
One of my favorite wrestlers, Xavier Witch, a.k.a. Austin Creed, he once at a certain point said, I'm not interested in good wrestling anymore. It either needs to be exceptional or terrible.
Wow.
And then I'm interested, then I'll watch. Then I want to watch because it's so oversaturated. I'm like, oh, I understand that. So I think the movie's probably fine for everybody and like enjoyable, and you're not going to dislike it. But I also don't think you're going to remember a ton of it. Like I'm trying to remember memorable moments with Ana de Armas, and I can't really think of any.
Yeah, she shoots Chris Evans with a tranquilizer dart at one point. It's quite fun.
But they repeat quite a few beats, and one of the things that sort of turned me off at a certain point was that I realized that none of the words are actual people words. Like
they're like script words,
sentences. Yeah,
it's
but
like
nobody's
no
that cool
like
and chill in real life. And if you are trying to make a ground a movie, it's like nobody's like, well, I filled his cup of coffee. It's like, what? No, why do you do? No. But they throw out so many. Like some of them are good for sure.
Yeah.
Like I think we all walked away laughing at the well, if you want to make an omelet, you got to kill a few people.
They throw a lot of shit at the wall in that regard.
Yes, and so some of it sticks, I guess, and some of it doesn't. But I didn't really feel all the characters were really defined. Like everybody's like, ooh, mysterious. I'm like, well, then you end up all in the middle.
Well, I think this is reflective of perhaps a lot of the movies that have come under the Netflix banner, the Netflix exclusives, right? You sort of said, you can apply that to anything, I guess. Like, I only want to see the absolute worst or the absolute best. Whereas Netflix, so much of their content this is absolutely fine. This is 3 stars. You want to watch a show about cakes? This one is absolutely fine. Do you like action movies? We've made one. It's got those people that you know in it. It's absolutely fine. And I suppose to a degree that, I mean, I can't imagine they set out to be like, we'll just make an average movie. They're like, no. They are clamoring for a franchise, right? Like The Old Guard. Is there going to be a sequel to that? Was it successful enough? Who knows? Does it even need to be successful enough? I suppose it needs to have enough people press play for them to warrant throwing more money at it. But they've got so much like money that they can just shit out, and they don't need to make it back at this point. They're just like, okay, The Old Guard, maybe it's a franchise. Red Notice, is it going to be a franchise? Who knows? I bet a fuck mountain of people watched that movie, and 90% of the reviews were like, this is absolute shit. Right? But as long as enough people press play on it, then you're all fine. 6 Underground, that went straight to Netflix, right? That was a fucking Michael Bay movie. I didn't hate it. I thought it was okay. And the same with this, albeit it gets that 1 week cinema window where it's like, no, it's not a Netflix movie. This is a cinema movie but it's just going to Netflix really quickly. You know, clearly no one involved in this production has the Tom Cruise might to be like, this is playing in cinemas for 3 months before you even get a sniff of this. Like, it's Netflix money. They ultimately are like, no, I mean, we're going to need it on Netflix pretty sharpish, you guys. So I don't know. I found it, I thought it was interesting to see the Netflix logo at the beginning of a movie in the cinema. I kind of like the idea that that's like a thing. And I do think, like, I'd probably rate it 3.5 stars out of 5. And maybe that extra half star is, I saw it in a big cinema with a huge screen and big sound. And if I'd watched it at home, maybe it would be like, yeah, it was all right. Yeah, it was fine.
It matters. And you know what? That is such a good thing to realize and something to use as well. It's setting matters. And that's fine. Like, that's not on you or on the movie, but it certainly helps to listen to live classical music as opposed to listening it on a CD. It's a far different experience and a much better one, in my opinion. Yeah, and obviously same goes for most movies anyway, but certainly action movies are on top of that list, I would say, because comedies tend to be like, yeah, fine, home cinema doesn't really matter.
And I do think there is a market for fine movies, right? Not
100%.
Not everyone wants to be like challenged with a sort of like hard-hitting drama every time they.
I don't.
That's why I would like half the content on Netflix is just like, just press play. It's 24 minutes. You know, you'll have watched 3 of them before you finished your dinner. What is it about?
Yeah.
Flowers or cakes or dating or social media or gardening? I forget. It's one of those. It's a format. It just
you need it, and you also kind of need to love it, I think. But there might be more niches within that giant gray area, and to sort of bookend it with what I said at the beginning. Bob Ross is the epitome of a format, that and the A-Team in my mind.
Yeah.
I feel if you play all A-Team episodes like above each other on a giant screen, pretty much the same exact thing is happening
beat for beat
times.
throughout the minutes of the episode.
Minute 23 they beat the bad guys. Minute 36 the bad guys beat them and lock them up in a
right. On minute 37 out comes the van that shoots cabbages out of a huge drain pipe
and tree trunks. And Bob Ross is the same. Like, it's gonna be nature. Sometimes it's snow, but it's mostly going to be a giant mountain in the background with a forest in the foreground with a little bit of water, and it's fine.
Yeah,
it's absolutely great. But it's the best thing at 1 a.m. on the way home in a train filled with busy and maybe slightly drunk people.
Right.
To have that little island, and I at that moment, I do not want to be mentally challenged on a philosophical level by anybody.
Sure,
I'm done with the day.
Equally,
I need something fun.
It makes me sad to think of someone watching The Grey Man on their phone in 20-minute chunks on the train home, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it does go from action scene to action scene. So there are natural points where you could just sort of go, okay, I'll pick this up next time. And then you're like, oh, that was an entertaining 20 minutes. And I would say maybe as if there's not just like rooms full of Netflix people like having these exact conversations where they're like, we need to open with an action scene. We need an action scene every 20 minutes. The algorithm tells us that people lose interest otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think to start rounding up, I think this is an above average action movie. As a self-appointed connoisseur on his own podcast, with the biggest platform for arseholery, the podcast with my name on it that I started. There's my idea where I talk about what I want to talk about and say whatever I want, aka all podcasts. But the idea of the podcast is to champion movies, and I think in the spectrum of action movies, this is an above average one. There wasn't much in it that made me go, oh, fuck off, mate. Come on.
Yeah, true.
And I maybe had turned down my critical dial a little bit because there were things that like you occasionally leant over and were like, well, I mean, and and that's the sort of thing that I find myself doing a lot when I watch things perhaps at home and not in the cinema, when I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. Like The Princess, for example, I went in going, I hope this is good and I'm going to give it a chance. And it had good bits. but it kept just not quite being what I wanted. And maybe that's me projecting onto what I wanted. And maybe that affects every single thing I watch, and I just need to learn to, switch that valve off. But this, I kind of got caught up in it, and I quite enjoyed the ride of it. And I really liked what they were trying to do with the action scenes, which was a lot of enjoyable practical stuff, marred by a tiny bit too much CG. But the hand-to-hand fights were visceral, quite well choreographed, occasionally a little bit shaky cam.
I would say all the time.
The set pieces were big scale. They looked like money. They didn't necessarily need to be in insert name of Eastern European country, insert name of exotic country. Like there was the Netflix effect of let's just bloody go everywhere, mate. Why is Danush in the movie? Probably because someone at Netflix was like, we have got a lot of people in India watching Netflix. You know how to get almost all of them to watch this movie. Is put in someone that, and no disrespect to Danush, but no one, hardly anyone who doesn't watch Indian movies will have heard of, right? I think he's great in this movie. I've looked him up afterwards. He's in a bunch of Indian movies I haven't seen. I don't think he's a trained fighter, but he looks better fighting in this movie than seemingly in a lot of the Indian movies that are undercranked and stuntmen getting clotheslined and doing flips, right? Like he comes in this movie and has a 2-on-1 fight, and it looks pretty good. That's one of the fights I would say that wasn't too shaky. And so I think there's a lot to enjoy here. I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed, maybe, apart from the 3 other people I took to the cinema to see it.
I mean, it just reminded us, I think, of a lot of the same thing. It misses some aim occasionally. Like, I can't believe I just thought of this. Once again, there's a bunch of drone shots in there.
Oh, we didn't touch on that, did we?
But they're really hit and miss in my book. But I think it was Carter that had a bunch of drone shots in there as well. But all of those felt already like, but there's a good reason, because they're on a long stretch of road and it's a continuous fight. And it's telling. And here there was just the occasional, well, we need to go from this character to this character, and we're doing it by drone.
Yeah,
like, well, it doesn't add anything to it, so why just cut to that character?
When we talked about Michael Bay's Ambulance a while ago, that was I would say the Pandora's box of FPV. First person visuals, video. I don't know what the V stands for. FPV drones, the ones where you put on a headset and you see what the drone sees. They're the drones that fly super fast and like with super intricate turns and shit.
Super precise.
They've worked out to put cameras on them. In Ambulance, Michael Bay flew them like underneath cars, doing jumps through explosions and shit. And like, it is pretty cool. It was like the first time you saw Bullet Time and you were like, this is new. And I said it then. I was like, these FPV drones are going to be all over movies and action movies this year. And this was the next time when I was like, they got the FPV drones. A couple of times it's cool. It's like, whoa, you can really move around the scene and the geography. And a couple of times, as you say, it's just like, I think it's like cool for cool's sake. It's like the week I get a drone. Everything I do has a drone in it for some reason.
Yeah, cool for cool's sake, but it that's the intention, but it doesn't look cool. It's sort of like, well, that was all right, but that was a spectacular shot, and like it didn't.
I mean, the fireworks
else.
around you in a fight scene is cool for cool's sake, right?
But have that drone around it as the fireworks are going off. Like everybody remembers that video when they saw it the first time, because usually fireworks just up in the air. So it's a very 2D plane. And that's the thing with these drone shots. It becomes more 3D, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get more to grips with the actual dimensions of the room, which matters. Like it matters if you have a good understanding, especially in a hand-to-hand combat, of where they are in the room, how they are moving throughout it. And yeah, you can do so many great things with if you're fighting in a room and throwing each other up against the wall, and then you slam through another door, but the drone goes from out the window and goes back into the other room through the other window. It's like, yeah, that's a swordfish, but then like in real life type of shot.
Yeah.
Tech Part 1 had like one of those shots, but then it's all CGI, and you can now do that for real.
That's right.
Like, it has a bit of bullet time to it, but with one camera. So holy hell.
It's very cool when it's cool, and then the next few times, it's like, maybe, yeah, all right, maybe
we're gonna get oversaturated.
Yeah, I do think we're gonna be maybe 1-2 more movies away from being like, I'm done. I'm enough with the FPV drones now. Cheers. Yeah, take it down a notch. Let's just go back to like shaky handheld cam. Come on, guys.
It's gonna be 3D all over again for a couple of years.
Yeah,
and then it's like, oh, actually, only a few movies benefit from also being seen in 3D.
I've only ever seen one, and that was Avatar.
If you ever get the chance, Pina, which is a movie about Pina Bausch, and it's basically a eulogy of a movie with all these dancers from her throughout the years, and it is in 3D. It is gorgeous. They do this wonderful thing with like a miniature soundstage where they explain the choreography, and then it melts into the actual piece. It's fantastic.
Oh, okay, yeah, that does sound good. I thought you were going to say. I Know What You Did Last Summer 4. There's this bit where a knife comes out of the screen.
I did watch like Final Destination, one of the 3D one in 3. Like that's a great movie of like, don't explain to me, just show me 6 people getting viciously murdered in 3D.
Yeah, I just want a lot of nails flying towards me. That's all. Yeah,
and it was that. It was basically a bunch of set pieces and like this. Yeah, and I don't want to know about any relationships or who's has a problem with who. I just want to see the stone fly all the way across the field, embedded into somebody's eye.
There you go.
That type of thing.
And if you just want to see Ryan Gosling being his slightly kind of detached, cool self, kicking a lot of ass.
Not showing his body off enough, by the way.
That's true. You only see it once, but he is hench in this movie. I think everyone is, to be fair.
Jacked.
He's really ripped, yeah. Fair play to him.
Oh my God.
He puts the work in. He looks good. He's doing a lot of fighting, a lot of shooting, a lot of running, jumping, smashing. I like the Goz. And I think Evans is good. He clearly, you're like, do you want to be in this action movie with the Russo brothers? And he's like, can I be the opposite of Captain America, please? And they give him enough rope. Does he hang himself with it? I don't know. He's got a comedy mustache and he makes a memorable bad guy character. I think let's leave it there. I think this is a suck it and see movie. I would say go in expecting an enjoyable action movie, fast paced, occasionally a titter, some good, exciting, visceral action bits, maybe a bit shaky cam, maybe too many FPV shots, maybe not enough depth. But if you want just a bread and butter action movie that I would argue is above average, I don't think you can go wrong with The Grey Man.
It's a decent meatball sub.
Okay. It's what I thought was called everywhere in the world, a foot long, but then I came to mainland Europe and the Netherlands and found out it is called a 30 centimeter sub. Doesn't quite have the same marketing ring to it, does it?
It does not.
Before we rapidly wrap it up, have you got an action replay moment?
Action replay! Action replay! That'll be
That's the new jingle.
That's my pitch for this bit. So you remember when I said, I'm having trouble remembering moments from even Honest Arma, and I'm at even before we started recording, I was like, action replay. I need to come up with the action replay. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there's not really something that I really want to rewatch in the movie, even though there's good stuff in there.
Yeah.
But there's not a moment where I really felt, except for to make an omelet, you got to kill some people.
That's an action replay line.
Yeah. So that is kind of as good or fine, I guess, as the action is. It wasn't too memorable for me. So my action replay is, if you're making an omelet, you got to kill some people.
Fair play. I'm similarly reeling back through the big bits. And I think to me, the most memorable bits were the good bits of hand-to-hand combat. So I think Danush's entrance has got a nice little hand-to-hand fight scene. He also has one quite near the end of the movie with Ana de Armas, which is pretty fun. Or I don't think it's spoiling anything to say, climactic fight twixt Gosling and Evans. And I've ragged on movies for this before that tee up a hero and a bad guy and they don't get to actually go at each other at the end. And this one does not disappoint, and they do get a proper action movie classic. Can we just put the guns down and have a bloody good old scrap? And they do, and I enjoyed that a great deal. So that, I'm going to say, the final fight. It's not going to surprise anyone, but that was my action replay moment.
I'll jump on that bandwagon. The knife wielding was pretty damn good.
Oh yeah, actually, there's one cool bit in that that you've reminded me. There's a cool thing he does with a knife that reminded me of something that happened in Commando 3 with Vidyard, which you'll have to look up on YouTube. There's a very good fight in that where someone does something cool with a knife. And Chris Evans does a similarly cool thing with a knife.
Oh, boys! I'm back!
All right, that very much brings us to the end of episode
16
of Dodge This. Emil, thank you so much for stepping into Matt Heighton's enormous shoes once more and doing an absolutely sterling job. If people want to find you on the internet, they can do that on, I would say, Instagram, right?
Yeah, at Emil Struijker. But more importantly, go to @fireside.panda if you like your comedy without context. It's where I dump all my digital creations that I make at the job at Boom Chicago for our shows. And that's all I can want to say about it because it's all without context.
Yeah, it will make and continue to make zero sense to you unless you attend one Boom Chicago show.
That's the thing. If you've seen the show that I made the slide about, you're like, oh, it's such a good souvenir. But
yeah.
But I like some of like just weird and random memes, and that's kind of what they are in a way. So yeah, fireside.panda.
It's very fun, and it's your Emil Struijker Boudier is very difficult to spell, but of course the link will be in the show notes. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Simon Fielder, spell EI. Link in the show notes. What did you think of The Grey Man? Let me know, mate. Shoot me a tweet. Also, loving any recommends of movies that we need to see. Been dipping in and out of Indian cinema. Love to hear more stuff from there. And any stuff like, Polaris, these little indie movies that, unless I do the digging, often will pass me by. So I'd love to find some more off the beaten track movies. As I say, very busy August coming up between Day Shift and Carter. Excited about those. Hopefully they will make it to the top of the podium and get their own episodes and not be in the bit at the beginning where I do the commiserations. Maybe I'll have to rename that segment.
The So Glad You Can Make It, Enjoy the Buffet section of the podcast.
That's it. It's just the starters, the amuse-bouche. We'll catch you next time. I haven't got a sign-off line. It used to be, keep kicking. That'll do it.
That'll do.
All right. That'll do, Pig. He says that'll do, Pig, as well.
He says that in the freaking There's so many just random lines that are, it truly is.
The more we talk, the more random shit we remember from the movie.